Okay, so welcome today to the presentation. Just a couple of housekeeping things. If you could just keep yourselves on mute as the presentation is going on, and then feel free, you can unmute yourself and ask any questions that you have, or if you feel more comfortable and want to use chat, you can do that, and I could watch out for those questions and I could relay them to Alka. So I am going to introduce, and bear with me 1 second here. Okay, oh, wrong one. Sorry, bear with me 1 second. I'm so sorry. Here we are. Okay, so Alka Kumar is a PhD as a research fellow in the Canada Excellence Research Chair in Migration Program at Ryerson University. She is also the Manager of Research and Policy at Newcomer Students Association. Additionally, Alka works as a consultant and instructor with organizations designing programs and conducting research studies, as well as facilitating workshops with immigrants and newcomers on topics like business writing, career development, upskilling, and diversity training. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Alka.
Thank you so much, Laurie. And good morning, everyone. Great to be here with all of you. How's everyone doing this morning? Doing well? Okay. I will. So I'm not going to use a lot of slides. It's just a 1 hour. So, and given that the topic really is, it's 2 pieces there, like 2 big pieces in terms of really communication skills and how we leverage and develop our communication skills in order to get the best results, to get success, to do whatever we are doing, to do it well. And problem solving is a really important part of it. For problem solving, I see is like a pathway to getting where we want to get to. So, which is not to sort of assume that there have to be problems as such, but like everything, it's like navigating, right? How do we navigate our world, whether personal or professional, in the best way possible, using our communication and developing our communication skills to the optimal. So I just have a very few, like I think 3 slides that I'm going to pull up. So it gives us a sense of what's the pathway for this next 1 hour. So we kind of stay on track. So I'm just going to, am I also a co-host here, Laurie? Can I share my screen?
Yeah, you have, okay. I've put it down there. So yeah, for sure you can.
Okay, perfect. So here goes. Okay, can everybody see my?
Yes, just so you know, we could see this. Yeah, good. Now you're good.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so so basically a bit of an outline, which is like we just like spend about 10 minutes learning a little bit about each other, tell you a little bit about myself. And then I would request everyone, we have a little go around where you spend like a minute or so, each person, sharing with all of us a little bit about you, because I want to learn who you are. And why did this workshop topic appeal to you? What is the draw? Why are you here? And what are you hoping to go away with? Sometimes it's good to have those questions like front and center so we can focus on them. And the goal is that how can we explore together your current situation from a problem-solving approach? So to introduce myself, I've been working. I see myself as, I call myself a pracademic, which is a term you may or may not have heard about. It's basically someone who likes to work at the intersection of research and practice. I believe that research is only as good as what it can help us achieve or do better than what we are doing currently. So basically, how do we apply our learnings and our insights from any research that is out there or that we do that can help us take some action, like plug some of the holes, the gaps which are there, and do better. So having sort of called myself, announced that I'm a academic, they're two really pretty different worlds. The worldview and, you know, the how to and everything is really different. But I have been working in the migration area for the last almost, I would say, close to 15 years. Previous to that was the time I was in India, from where I moved to Canada. I used to teach at the university. Literature was my area. I decided to go back to school once I moved here and did this PhD in the peace and conflict studies area, and under which I studied labor market issues and challenges for racialized skilled immigrants. And I wanted to look at it from a practitioner perspective, because I was also working with individuals like that. So I wanted to learn how they were experiencing their challenges and what they were doing about it, and how could we support them to build their own capacity? How could we support organizations to work in a way with them so they meet their potential? And how can all that have policy implications? So that's the area ballpark that I work in. All right, so our discussion focus areas today are going to be communication skills, what is problem solving, and looking at everything from a growth and development perspective, so personal and professional. Some of the following topics may be relevant, but when we go around, I would like us to kind of share, but we'll come to that. But maybe we'll get to some of these topics: managing your business, scaling impact, learning new skills to do all of the above, and business success. What does it look like? How do you balance that with personal well-being? And how do you achieve your goals with all of that in mind? So the last thing that I'm going to keep focusing on all of these things intermittently as the conversation takes us wherever. But some of the problem solving tools, and why I put that interrogation mark there is because I don't like the idea in a sense of problem solving, because I want to look at it more as what do we have and what do we need to do better. So it's not like we're really solving a problem, but ultimately getting to that means that you solve a problem. And so where are my tools going to come from? A bit from the communication field, a bit from a business writing context, also conflict resolution, and how do we sharpen some of our interpersonal skills, because very important to do that to build better communication. And then they also come a little bit from career development and counseling, because at any stage of one's life, we might be in some kind of transition and struggling to make some changes, do something better than we do already, and moving towards, some goal. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing right there. And later I can share these slides with Laurie if anybody's interested, and she can share with you, with all of you. These are just pegs to keep us going. So, okay, so I've talked a lot about myself. And if everybody can take like a minute or so to share a little bit about any one thing you want to say about yourself. It could be if you're running a business or you're thinking of starting a business, what is your interest and what drew you to this place and what are you hoping for? I'm not saying you have to put all of that in 1 minute, but anything that kind of stands out for you in any of those questions, feel free to respond. And we just have a small go around so we can get to know each other a little bit, if that's okay. Okay, if you would like to volunteer, otherwise I'll have to call out your names.
I'll volunteer.
Go ahead, Barbara.
Okay, thank you, Alka. So I'm Barbara Robinson, and I have a business. It's a communications business, and I'm also a writer. I do a lot of work with large organizations. For example, I'm working with Fisheries and Oceans Canada right now to help them with their to get ready to develop a campaign to protect 25% of Canada's oceans by 2025. So that's just an example of sort of one client. So it's typically sort of ecosystem based and at a sort of national or provincial level. And so what attracted me to this was the whole just the idea of problem solving. And I actually like how you put it, what do we have and what do we need to do better? So I'm just hoping to, I don't know specifically what I'm looking to get out of it, but just generally to be able to do better. And yeah, looking for, what you have to say about that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thanks so much. Yeah, I appreciate that you picked that part, and that really what resonates with me as well. So that's how I frame it, because I want to look at everything from an asset mapping perspective. What's the strength-based perspective? Because often we're thinking of how do we solve somebody's problem? What's the lack here? What's missing, and how do we fill that for somebody else? The way services are delivered or conceptualized. So there's a bit of a problem in that, I find, because we already bring a lot to the table. Look at you, what you shared, like you don't need me to say anything to you, right? But it's the getting together and each of us sharing, because each of us knows and has different experiences. So really, I see it as sharing experiences, validating each other, and learning from each other. So thank you for that, Barbara. Tina, I see your hand up. I'm just going to close this curtain. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. As the screen says, my name is Tina BQ Tran, and I am a energy psychology practitioner. I help working professionals deal with negative emotions such as stress, anxiety, depression, fears, phobia, grief, shame. And whether we realize it or not, a lot of these negative emotions are behind many of the issues that we face on a daily basis. Like, for example, the other day, somebody came to me because she says she have weight issues. Well, as it turned out, it was her anger and resentment against some family members that get her to eat more and gain weight. So really, the emotional issues were the cause of her behavior. That just to give you an example of the work that I do. Why I show up today, as you can see by the work that I do, a lot of it sometimes is to dig out the real issues. Like, I am intuitive, so most of the time I can sense what is the issue. However, I need the client to see the issue for themselves, because if I put the words in their mouth, that means I'm interpreting the situation for them, and the healing happens more efficiently and effectively when it comes from them. And what I need is to use my communication skill to guide them to come to the realization of what is the root cause of their situation. And so the reason I show up today is I'm hoping to walk away with a trick or a tip. Like, I know a great deal of my work has to do with listening. However, once I finish listening, I need to be able to use my communication skills to guide my clients into finding the solution from within. And sometimes what I think and what comes out of my mouth is not as clear as I want it to be. And as such, I'm hoping to walk away with a trick or a tip or a tool to accomplish that goal. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Tina. That's amazing. Love it. And why I'm going to just comment on each of what you say is to kind of build further and, like deepen that conversation a little bit. So just to pick up on a couple of points from what you said that stood out for me is you talked about this client and, the came with a manifest weight issue, but actually the root cause is somewhere else, which is what often happens. Like, we are not, and even my work in the peace and conflict studies area, very strongly, one of the theories we kind of develop, we kind of work around with the framework is root cause theory, because oftentimes the conflicts that we see on the surface are just the tip of the iceberg. The real cause is buried like deep, deep within. So how do we delve into that, and how do we fix that rather than fix, because otherwise there's going to be a band-aid solution. So like totally. The other thing that stood out to me was that, the moment of readiness. And also you said, like you don't want to put words into your client's mouth. So you have to meet your clients where they are at and then get them through your work to that moment of readiness, or pick up that moment of readiness, because that's the only time they're going to respond. Otherwise, if you're going to impose something, like our kids tell us, our grown-up kids, they tell me all the time, you think I'm going to do what you're telling me to do? That's not happening, right? So it's that moment of self-readiness. The other thing as you mentioned about communication skills, which also stood out to me, was intentionality. Sometimes we intend to say something, but it comes out different. And that's the whole problematic with the communication process. And how do we ensure that the two ends of that meet, what the sender is saying and what the receiver is receiving? That has to come together, align, the ducks in a row, because if that doesn't happen, whatever work you've done is gone to dust, because you didn't intend it to go to dust, but because the other person didn't get it, then something went wrong. So reflection, what happened? How can you do better? Okay, so thank you for that. Who's going next?
I can go if that's okay. Hi, my name's Emma. I work at Contact North. We're a distance education and training network, and I received information about these webinars in an email, and I was very eager to join because I'm young. I still have plenty to learn. I'm applied to social work programs for next year, so obviously this could all be very beneficial. And for the work I do now, like I said, I only have a high school education up to this point. So I'm 20, I'm entering the adult world, lots to learn. So I'm very happy to be a part of this today. Thank you.
Lovely. Yeah, and that's one of the things what you say, Emma, lines up with what I'm thinking about, that we want to look life year 20 or 50 or 70 from a growth and development perspective, because that's what ongoing learning is all about. That's what keeps you, the mind fresh and alert, and the body, like the curiosity, really. Let me put it in one word. I see it as curiosity, because there's so much to learn, and the more you learn, the more you realize that you don't know anything. Happens to me all the time. So and that's fun. That's the fun of learning. So I'm glad that you, and I think it's our good fortune when we come upon anything that's happening that seems interesting, and then you make the time, create the time to go to it. And I believe that whoever is meant to be in a group, whoever is in the group is the people who are meant to be in the group, right? So I kind of go at it from that perspective. So thank you for being here, Emma.
Yeah, thank you. Knowledge is power. So anywhere I can learn more.
Yeah. Okay. So we have Ela. Is that how I say your name? Ella? Ela? Sorry, I don't want to say it wrong. Are you here? Okay, I guess we can come back. All right, let's move on then. So thanks for sharing that. Anybody has any thoughts on anything anybody else said in the room that stood out for you?
Did you want me to go? Alka?
Yes, yes,
yeah?
please.
Okay, sorry, not that I'm trying to take up time here.
I wasn't sure if you'd be happy to, so yes, but thank you so much.
Yeah, sure, no problem. Well, I'm Lori, and I'm a business counselor with Pero, and I'm based in Thunder Bay. So, I'm always looking at, getting information and helping me grow too. I'm not the best public speaker, and I shy away from doing any of that kind of stuff, really. I'm better one-on-one. But anyways, any kind of help that helps with, bettering yourself, I'm always interested in. So that's me.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that and for taking the initiative and saying you'd like to say something. And that's about also, one of the things that tells me when Lori said that, and something really very critical, in that we often don't get out of our comfort zone. So it's important, I feel, and like, for example, what I do, if there's something I don't understand, it may seem like a stupid question, but I make myself like ask it, because I say, okay, if I don't ask it, what's going to happen? Yes, I can look it up. Everybody can look up anything these days, but the way a conversation with 2 and 3 other people weighing in can help you understand something and make you remember it forever is a very different form of learning. So I feel that getting out of our, and when we talk about strategies, I think one of the strategies that I use and that I always encourage anybody I work with to use is to really be open and flexible and look a little bit like that. You also have, you want both the forest and the trees, because one without the other doesn't give you a sense of the world. So we want to both zoom in and we want to look wide, because if you don't look wide, then you don't know what you're missing. And if you don't go deep in, then you don't know the depth of anything. So somewhere, what are those strategies? And sometimes those strategies need to connect with your understanding of who you are. And in my very first slide, I know that I didn't say introduce yourself. I said, let us know, share with us who you are, because I think that's really important, that who you are is what you bring to everything that's personal and everything that's professional. Sometimes people don't think like that and people don't believe that. They think that the personal me is very different than the professional me, and that you can create that professional persona to do the right thing and to be the right way, and that's okay. But then I'm not sure, I don't go personally with that theory, and I find it hard to do that, because I am who I am, and if I show up wherever I go in the authentic person that I am, then that's my best chance of doing well, and because then I can be myself. And what happens sometimes, like when you work with individuals, whether, like, just to give you an example, when we talk about people who have done a lot of things in their lives, and then they're trying to present themselves on a resume, and they are trying to target that resume to make it appropriate for the job posting. I'm not saying that's not important. That's really that's critical, that's key. But then I find people keeping back information about themselves, which can actually tell the potential employer, a lot about them, which is valuable. So we often don't even value what we bring to the table, because we discount that and we say, oh, this is not special, this is not important, everybody has this. So the balance between being assertive and being aggressive, or the balance between being arrogant and being confident, I think some of those things are very important, and that's working on the self. That's the growth development piece, where you say, okay, I need to, and again, another part of this I would say is reflection, being able to reflect on who you are and being open to your own blind spots. Sometimes we say, oh, I don't need help because whatever, or I'm so open anyways. But we can get a reality check from the way other people may, people, our loved ones, our friends, our family, sometimes when they are critical and they say, you say this about that, this is how you are, but you're not actually like that. So being open even to those kind of criticisms. Moira, I see you. I don't think we got a chance to learn anything about you. Did you want to go? Did you want to tell us something about you?
Oh yeah, sorry about that. I had to take some calls. Good news, it's from clients. I have a small flower design business, and I do flower arrangements by subscription. I deliver flowers on a Monday. The following Monday, I take the old flowers away with me. I compost all the materials, recycle the vases, containers, And then I start again the following week. I don't use any plastics at all. That makes me different.
Wow, amazing.
Thank you.
That's great. Just something that that's much needed in the world right now. And what drew you to this workshop, to this topic? Why are you here?
Oh, for communication, I find that when I get talking, I start rambling and lose my focus, and anything but communication I'd like to keep up with. And I'm not a small talk person, so I feel awkward going into like strange environments. I can speak in public because I have a purpose, but to go into a group of people just as friends, like I've got nothing in common and nothing to say. I'm a bit of an introvert, so everything about communications I'm trying to absorb.
Okay, lovely. Yeah, thanks for that input. Yeah, and yeah, we were talking about getting out of our comfort zone and being a bit reflective and learning every day a little bit more about ourselves, being open to that new learning and not being like really stuck and thinking, oh, I know this already, or, like I don't need help with this or that or the other, because that can stop and stunt a growth right away. So when you say, so it's interesting that you say that you can, when you go out into public, you have, because of your sense of purpose and what you do, and you're so passionate about, words come easy and you're really comfortable. So if somebody sees someone like you, they won't know for a moment that you are an introvert, but then you call yourself an introvert, and you say when you go into more of a personal, smaller, private setting, you don't have anything to say because you don't, so it takes all kinds to make the world. And we have to figure out who we are and how do we leverage and develop the strengths that we have, and how do we work to do better on some of the weaknesses that we might have. And so one thing I would like to say to that is that I think curiosity takes us very far, because that's one good way to build communication with another person. If you're interested in what somebody else is doing or who they are, then it's really easy to start and have a conversation, because people love talking about themselves. So, it's, I think everybody's, even if they are introvertish kind of people, they still often, like mostly, like to talk about themselves. So that's one. The other communication tip is we often send out messages into the world, whether verbal messages or written messages. A lot of communication these days happens electronically. So that is another layer that gets added to communication, because there's no body language there. The pandemic has done that, even, like made this even more challenging, because we really didn't have body language. And of course, Zoom gives us enough body language, actually. I can express myself and I can see you connecting with me. And of course, there's the challenge when a lot of little black boxes are there. Many people don't come on video. So I had a class recently where I do this workshop, which is a 5-hour-long workshop. So 9:30 to 2:30. And that's e-communication and business writing. 20 individuals, not one coming on video. So it was challenging, but by the end of the first one, and I taught, like 7 of those, like one every week. And by the end of the first one, though, I felt that I could communicate, because they were talking. It's not like they weren't talking, they weren't responding to what I was saying. We had like a fulsome conversation during those 5 hours. So I said, okay, I can get used to that, So we are so adaptable. All we need to do is crack the problem. Once you crack the problem, once you figure out what you're trying to address, then the rest is fairly easy. So the communication piece, the one important thing that I think there's a gap sometimes as senders, is what I was saying when I got distracted about the 20 people and the no video. What I was trying to get at there was that the sender sends out messages without consciously or deeply thinking about the receiver, the recipient. So is the recipient receiving the message in the way that you intended it? Maybe no. In the fullness and the depth of what you meant? Maybe no. And that again is the business writing skill a little bit, which I think we need to all be open to working on for ourselves, because it's the tone. How do you catch that tone in your writing that will communicate what you want to say? So certainly, at least being aware that the communication act is something that looks like a pipeline. So there's sender on one end of it and the receiver on the other end of it, and there may be noise in the middle. If there is noise, and the noise could mean, like if there was, if somebody was doing their grass right now outside my window, you wouldn't be able to hear me well. But that noise can be internal as well. If you're distracted or for any reason you're not feeling engaged, that's the other noise. So external, internal noise. Unintentional noise could be that you don't really know the how-to of communicating like that. So that's one, being always aware that it's a process. There are two people at the end of, it's a spectrum. The other is the whole idea, we talk about listening all the time, but are we really actively listening? So I think important. So these are some of the aspects to even bear consciously in mind: active listening, active deep listening, turn taking. Sometimes when you say, I keep rambling on, so waiting to see, is somebody trying to say something to me? Are they going to, are they responding? Are they connecting? So active listening, turn taking, being respectful, very important. Extremely important. And what does that look like? Being respectful, what does that look like? That you're actually paying attention, and that could be a simple thing, like not like we go through this at home certainly all the time, because we are very familiar with each other, with our families. So you may be on your phone while somebody's talking to you, and what does that do to a relationship? So something really simple like that. So what are the noises that you need to eliminate to get to that optimal and efficient communication? And for that, the first step is how, so you may discern for yourself that, okay, maybe I am not organized. I'm not organized when I'm presenting this information. So then you need to work on your organization. And whatever that looks like. I mean, I love making these little lists and columns, and, somewhere and I'm a very disorganized person. Sorry to have to admit this in public, but I am. So I'm glad that I'm aware of it and that I do something, because imagine if you're not even aware, or you're not able to accept that that is the case, then where are you going to be? You're never going to improve, right? It's like not asking that critical question. That's the burning question for you, but you're not asking it because you are afraid of feeling like a fool. So then you'll never get this other person's take on it. So and it connects again to comfort zone, getting out of comfort zone in a very deliberate kind of way. Okay, I'm going to pause and take a breath and give you all the opportunity to comment, to ask any questions if you have, share any observations so far on what I said. If this resonates what I'm saying. Any thoughts? You could share an experience that came to your mind while I was talking, something you disagree with or agree with. It doesn't matter. It's just like sharing an experience.
Yeah, I have an experience for you. My husband and I are very busy and we're often going different directions, but I'll ask him to do something and then he doesn't do it. And I ask, like, why didn't you do it? He said, well, did I acknowledge you? hope possibly not, but I have caught him times where he has acknowledged it, I'm on it, and it still wasn't done. Like, okay, we need to take it to another level. I don't have full communication here.
Yeah, really important. I think this is something, and again, I think it goes back to what I said about multitasking and being on the phone. I think it's another level of problematic when we're talking about personal relationships, because there's the element of familiarity. There's the element of taking each other for granted. And there's also the element of, oh, I can do this. There is, we are partners, and there is intimacy here, so we can, who else will I, if I'm angry, who else am I going to yell at, or who will I take for granted if I don't do it with you? So there's somewhere and I'm saying this from personal experience, responding to what you said. So and again, I think we all, in every relationship, we have to find our own ways of navigating it. And the way I find, for me, what's important, I'll just share what's important for me. I really need a positive environment to thrive in, to live in. And so I try the hardest for myself. How do I create that? So if I need to sort of say, okay, this, I'll have to tell myself this doesn't matter, or I'm going to do something else, because if I can't live in this situation, then I have to do something to change it, right? So you keep trying to change the other person, but sometimes, as we hear all the time, we have to change the lenses through which we look at something. If we decide that we are not in a position to change the situation, then what am I going to do? Then I'm just going to have to work with it in the best way possible that works for me. So, and whatever that looks like, I guess, is what I'm talking about. Yeah. We have somebody new joining us, but Barbara, I think you had something, so I'll let Tabitha, are you here? You're one of the, okay.
I'm here.
Oh, okay. Okay, you're with the organization. You're the coordinator. Okay. Did you want to say something? Did you want to introduce yourself as part of the group?
No, I'm not a coordinator.
There's something here. Mm-hmm. Okay.
No, I was just attending. I wanted to listen in. Sorry.
Okay. Okay,
That's
so
okay.
we carry on, and anytime you want to say anything, please go ahead. Yeah, Barbara.
I was just going to say that, I mean, this is really interesting what you're talking about, and about connecting, and how do you deal with it? And I think we've probably all had this experience where you're in a conversation with someone and they are just talking and talking and talking and talking, and you're looking at them and you're thinking, how can you not see that you've got to let me participate, or I'm getting bored, or like, this is so, and I there's been so many times, and I tend to be really polite about these things. So I'll get, and it's just hard, because it's not just about me communicating, it's the way the other person communicates too. And, you get these people, and I have some of them in my family, and they could just, and then when they finish saying what they have to say, right? And it's not fighting or anything, it's just they're talking, they can easily walk away. Or if I go to talk, you can tell that they're really fidgety and they're not listening, and they're, so just wondered about that kind of, I seem to encounter it a lot.
Yeah, and probably you are a nice, polite person, and you are not able to, cut them off or get in there. But, I've been in situations where I'm telling myself to say out loud, like, read the room, we always need to read the room, right?
Yeah.
It's being present. It's really, and again, as I said earlier, in response to what Moira said, we have to, I think we have to sometimes role model communication also, model it and lead it, and deliberately interrupt. And, when I work with newcomers, they often complain. They say in Canada, people will say, hey, how are you doing? How are you today? And nobody stops to even listen to the answer. It's not expected. They said, people I'm confused. People seem very friendly, but when they ask me a question and I'm responding, they're gone.
Mhm.
So
I actually have a story about that. When I was having some anxiety and I was outside of a drugstore and there was a woman sitting there. It was in this little town, and she said, "How are you doing today?" And I stood and I said, "Not very well." And I sat down beside her, and I'll tell you, the look on her face. I mean, she ended up being really nice, but she was just so not expecting me to do that. But I think what you said about the role modeling, I really, really like it, because there's different reasons we communicate the way we do, obviously. And going back to even what, I just want to look at the name here, what Tina said about, people have issues and they sometimes don't even, know what they are, but they behave because maybe they're nervous, right? Maybe they're just so nervous that they just talk, right? So I think it's about reading the room for the audience, for the receiver, for everybody, right? And understanding that this person it might be a challenge for them to communicate, and that's why they're like this. It's not that they're selfish or self-centered or not reading the room.
Yeah.
Just a thought. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I think empathy goes a long way too in building good communication. If you can come to any conversation or any individual or any relationship with compassion, with empathy, including to yourself. Sometimes that's why we call it self-compassion. I find it interesting that we say self-compassion, because compassion always means being compassionate to another person. Why should compassion not imply compassion both to the other and yourself? But the fact that it doesn't is obvious from the fact that we say self-compassion when we're talking about being compassionate to yourself. Those things are really important. Thinking about, okay, this is how this person, maybe they are a much older person, maybe they just came from another context, or maybe it could be a cultural thing, it could be an age thing, it could be any context thing where they communicate like that. But I think it's about assertion as well. So as the person on the other side, you have to navigate that, especially if it's a relationship. It could be a really important professional relationship or a really important personal relationship where you are not feeling validated because of the other person's communication. So you have to stick your neck out and do something about it. And it's okay to do that. Of course, we will always balance that, and it'll be a personality thing. Some people will be more pushy on it. Somebody will be more accepting of being treated like a doormat, and another person will say, no, I can't do this. I'm going to leave today. So it's a personal thing. So much is at stake. So it's hard to talk about any of this in a generalized kind of way because it is so specific. Okay, Tina, you have your hand up. Would you like to say something?
Yeah, I have a question. Because at the beginning you mentioned about peace and so on. So taking the situation in Ukraine as an example, so they were negotiating for peace, right? And it's not going anywhere. So is that a communication problem? Obviously, because the war is still ongoing, and just yesterday, President Putin confirmed publicly that the peace talk is not going anywhere. So what's the issue there?
So I'm no expert on the Ukraine problem. Yeah, I like what Barbara is saying. It's a Putin problem. What I want to say there is that communication is only one sliver of the problem there. And oftentimes communication cannot solve all problems because the two sides are so entrenched. And in this case, we can't even say two sides are that entrenched. It's this one man madness that is really holding the whole world to hostage, and so many people had, leading to this humanitarian crisis. Of course, I'm not saying that's the only view on it. So yeah, that's fine, Laurie. Thank you. So this is a political kind of debate. So there are many, many issues, and that often happens that in any conflict, there are going to be so many embedded root issues of, that are like historical, that are, to communities. It could be about resources, whatever, what have you. The issues are going to be so deep down rooted, what you were talking about earlier. So then both, and again, there's the moment of readiness. Are both sides ready for this conversation, ready to move forward? Maybe a time will come in this current conflict where both the parties, like Russia, will be ready to kind of, because you have to, a compromise, a solution means you have to give up something, right? So if you're not willing to give up your position, whether it could be a position of power or an ideological position, then, I mean, everybody's walking on eggshells right now with not being, sanctions are there, but then, what role is the West, how much of a role they can play in controlling or, ending this conflict. It's a very complicated case, but communication, yes, one, but one of the important things in communication again is what are you willing to give up? What are you willing, are you willing to give in to something? And if you're not at all going to do that, then any communication that can happen may not work all that well. I don't know, it's not a good answer, but that's all that I can say regarding that without getting into the weeds of the problem. Any other thoughts? Anybody has any question or observation? I mean, one of the things that I often like to think about when we are when you're talking about communication or problem solving is how do we create that win-win-win situation? Because often there's going to be, there's more than one party in a situation. So, and that again goes back even to what you said, what you asked, Tina, is there a win-win-win? Is there potential for a win-win-win? Does it mean that the conflict has to first be like surfaced? So is that going to be re-trauma? So many of these big political situations that are like intractable, irresolvable conflicts, it has happened that, both like peacekeepers will have the two sides, and the objective external peacekeeper mediating a conflict or a team mediating a conflict where the two sides are like really fixed and solid in their own way of thinking and refusing to budge, and then helping people dialogue as a way to help people see a shared common goal. That's the idea of trying to achieve dialogue, whether it's in a personal relationship, a professional relationship, an international conflict relationship. How do you see the other, not as the other, not as how different they are and how their goals in life are different, but what are the similar things that you share? So if you can build a peace process in any environment, which is rooted more in a common shared goal and living together perspective, then I think that's what counseling tries to achieve. That's what mediation tries to achieve. So, but how to get to that? Yes, communication is a very important part. And that's where the external mediator often comes in, because they are not invested personally in either side. So they can come through as neutral. And both sides are maybe able and willing, if they are willing, first of all, if they are willing, is there that moment of readiness? So I think if we take some of these tips and tricks and thoughts into any situation, extrapolate them into any situation that we are in, it's a helpful thing. It could be useful, is what I'm trying to say. I don't know if that makes sense. Any quick thoughts from anybody? I think we're pretty much out of time, and I feel like we didn't even talk about anything. Yeah, 1 hour is not a lot of time. Okay, Jenny, you're just coming in. We are like 6 minutes, 8 minutes away. Okay, yeah, but good to see you. So I thought if we can just like, okay, I think we just have time to, for everyone to just sort of think for a moment and say, what is your takeaway? Like, what resonates with you? What do you think you might be able to practice for yourself in an action-oriented way from the conversation we had today, if there's anything? Because sometimes those little things kind of stay with us, with each other. So if there's anything, I think that's pretty much all the time we have as a checkout right now. Who would like to start us off?
I
can say nothing. You can say.
Oh, no, I mean, what I take from this is the idea of always, you know, like I love to talk about self-compassion and compassion for others and empathy. And I think being present in the conversation, right? And I guess just learning and growing and being open-minded and understanding. And I don't know if I can think of any more adjectives. I've kind of just dropped them all there. But yeah, I thought it was, it's a really interesting discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Okay, who'd like to go next?
I'll go. I really liked when you touched on like how when you are communicating the sender and the receiver, like a lot can happen in the in-between, because that does happen. Like I find a big issue is either people don't actively listen. That's something even I struggle with because I'm just always thinking, so I easily get distracted. So, or even when I liked when you brought up being open to reflection and criticism too. One thing I find about criticism with people is a lot of people take criticism very like, as you're saying, like you could just say you're a little disorganized sometimes, and they'll take that as like you're a horrible person, you can't do anything right, and then they jump to getting defensive. So that's an interesting, I took a lot of little notes. There's lots that I took away from this and enjoyed. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, feedback is really important, you know, both giving and receiving feedback. I think it is so important how to do it respectfully and not like, you know, bringing the person down, because then you're not achieving anything. The other thing I always ask myself in anything I do, how is this serving me? If I'm getting too negative or if I'm getting too angry, like, how is this helping me? Is it going to take me forward? Or is it going to take me backward? Where do I want to go? So always checking in with yourself, where do I want to go? And where is this action or this thought of mine taking me? I think that's a good double check with yourself. That can be helpful. Okay, who's going next? Moira, do you want to go next? Somebody going next? No? Jenny, you want to say something?
I hope that Lori will send this to me. I was really looking forward to coming, and I said to myself, it doesn't always pertain, but better late than never. And it's nice to hear the little bit of feedback here. Yeah, I know my judgments. I always, when I'm talking to people, I always decide if I'm better or worse than the person, and so I always feel totally inferior in conversation, and the odd time I feel superior, and neither of the spectrums are allow me to listen. So yeah, I'm glad for the feedback that people are sharing, and I'll watch the recording. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. And we talked quite a bit about being reflective. And one of the ways to solve most problems is to learn what the problem is. You know, be reflective about where I am at with this issue, with this problem. We tend to think that the other person is bringing the problem, you know, is creating the problem. But sometimes we may be creating that problem. And also externalizing that, you know, separating the person from the problem. The person is the person and the problem is the problem. And we often, you know, collapse those two. So, and to not do that is to be non-judgmental. And I think that we didn't, I think I kind of didn't bring that into the conversation. But when we talk about respect, being respectful, one important piece of that is being non-judgmental. You know, working with we all have assumptions. It's easier to see other people's assumptions, and we have a blind spot about our own. So if somebody, a close person who's close to you, is able to, if you give another person who you're close to the permission to point out all your problems and for you to point out all of theirs, that can be a really great conversation. Great learning experience.
Mhm.
One thing I learned about conflict when I first joined this field, conflict is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. We try to, I think in Canada, the default is to avoid conflict, avoid adversarial behavior, because you don't want to get to problem solving. So if you don't have it, that's the best. Problem is, a lot of issues fester. It's all sitting under that rug, that dirty spot under that rug. It's all going to be there. So sometimes you have to take the bull by the horns, and you have to surface conflict, because conflict is good, because that's your way to move forward. It could be a pathway for forward movement. So when I heard that, this was really one of the first things I came across when I joined my, you know, conflict resolution program. And it was like a eureka moment. I said, wow, this makes sense. So a theory like that, how do I put it into action for myself? I try not to be afraid of addressing conflict, you know, so that could be, it's just something to think about. Again, no generalizations here. Each of us is different. Each conflict situation is different. You don't want to have a bigger mess on your hands than you already have. So don't quote me saying that, you know, let's open this can of worms every day. No, not really. So, you know, we have to kind of do this well. We have to do it right. That's important. Yeah. I think, Moira, you wanted to say something? And then we can close off.
Yeah, what you say is it makes a lot of sense. I guess we've got to find the common ground and listen for feedback. And yeah, I think the secret is find a common ground and take the conversation from there. I think that's what I'm getting from you.
Yeah, and there's so many, like can I take another just 3-4 minutes? Is that okay?
Oh yeah, go ahead. We have the room till 10 after.
Okay, so another 5 minutes then. So like I do a little bit of work, you know, in a community setting, and there again, the focus is a lot on dialogue. And I've kind of recently become familiar with different ways of creating that dialogue space. Usually in a Zoom room, you will have a breakout room with a lot of people in one room and, you know, doing some like small group discussion on a topic or whatever, and coming back and, you know, sharing with the big group and all of that. So similar to that, except that in this kind of group, there's just 2 to 3 people in each group. The goal there is no more than 3 people. Because with 3 people, you will have a very different conversation that you would have with 6. That's obvious, right? Because there's nowhere to hide, and there's nowhere to, and also it's not the usual kind of questions. It's more like we're always trying to think about where am I at right now, and what's my desired state. So there's the whole idea of goal setting as well, being very clear, doing like an envisioning process for yourself, whatever business you're in, whatever stage of your business you're in. How are you managing okay right now? Are you making a profit? Are you trying to scale? So what stage of your business or your work, it might be whatever it is, where are you at? So, and where is it? So what's the current state and what's the desired state? And that's about kind of looking ahead. That's about deconstructing, putting it all out there on paper. So it's not just in your head, but you are making, you're doing like a flow chart, or you're doing like a, you have like a vision board or something like that. Those things are actually very helpful, because then you externalized it. You put it outside yourself. Now it's real. You can see it. And then you can map, on one side, you can map all the assets that you have that will help you get to this goal. And your goal can be broken up into 3. It could be a short-term goal, a medium-term goal, a long-term goal. And how do these 3 connect with each other, both in the timeline development and also in what leads to the next level, because when you're writing something, you have to build an argument, right? So you can't just put in the first paragraph what really should be coming in the 4th paragraph. If you do that, the person who you're sending this message to is not going to understand a thing. So first things first, second things second, third things third, and then the interconnections and the development of the idea. Similarly, the development of your journey, mapping it out is important, and doing it particularly from a strength-based perspective. What do I have? But also not shy away from what is it that I don't have? Because the moment you put it out there that what you have, it will become clearer what you don't have. And then in a very deliberate way, addressing those concerns, because then you've divided it. It's like, it's not water and milk like mixed together. It's the 2 are separate. And so you can look at each of them with more clarity. Again, another very important part of communication is clarity. Clarity is so important. It's not, we often don't pay that much attention to it. But when I talk about the communication process, I think clarity really needs to come right on top there. And then, of course, we talked about tone. We talked about the how-to of, how is it respectful, this message you're sending out, or are you even thinking about it, whether it's non-judgmental and respectful? Okay, I think I'm going to close on that note. Thank you very much, everyone, for being here. Thanks, Kylie. You are kind of holding us together right now because Laurie went away.
It's all good. Always happy to help.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Thanks, everyone, for being here today. I hope that you took a few things from this, and I wish you all the best in your journey onward. Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for the wonderful presentation today. If anybody would like a copy of today's recording, feel free to send us an email at communications@pero.ca. And we will send you a link to the copy of the recording. Feel free to stay on for our next webinar, Circle Discoveries, in about 10 minutes. We'll see you all soon.
Kylie,
Bye-bye.
can you?
Yes.
Kylie, can you? Hi, it's me, Jenny.